Greetings, students. What a joy. We've almost made it. Human communication. So proud of you. What an accomplishment. I hope this semester you have learned more about human communication. What do I mean by that? Understanding the variables that are also important, imperative to understand in order to be a more effective communicator. Certainly, it's a process of generating meaning, using semiotics, symbols, signs, receiving the verbal and the nonverbal communication, encoding, decoding is what entices you, how the person speaks. Is it their culture? Are you able to code shift? Are you competent in intercultural communication? Is it the artifacts that they wear, the word choice, regional dialect? I mean, I can keep going on and on. But being an effective communicator keeps in mind, is aware of these and many other variables. We're almost there. As I noted, of course, we have our final next week. That'll open up at the end of the week. All this information is in your Georgia View. Thank you so much. So let's go ahead and get started. I don't want to be too long, but I do want to give you some information that could button this up, seal up this course in a way that I'm certain will benefit you in your home life, friendships, and also the workplace, neighbor, wherever you find yourself as you continue on in this wonderful life. Etymology of crisis. This is really serious, people. We've got to talk about in human communication. Interesting to note that in the Greek, krine is distinguished turning point or discrimination. Latin, crises, judgment, decision or separation, choice, medical reference, the progression of a disease, recovery of death, decisive state of things. Some of you might find yourself a crisis in the communication that you have. You see where this is going? When you look at the etymology, the origin of a word, it gives you and informs you on other pertinent concepts associated with said word. American Standard English says crisis is a time of intense difficulty, critical point. Quote by John F. Kennedy, our 35th U.S. President, when written in Chinese, the word crisis is composed of two characters. One represents danger and the other represents opportunity. That's intense. Ponder that for a moment. So sometimes people think that a crisis can be negative. And when you're in communication, sometimes you want to withdraw, exit the communication. But sometimes it can be an opportunity to network, representing growth in communication. There are different types of course, crises. You can, in doing a survey of adults while your time in college, some things that either made you see it as an opportunity or danger. The work balance, your health, emotional, depression, lack of sleep, economic fluctuations, death of a family member, or just no crisis at all. Some said they just found the solution and worked through their problems. Applaud them. What a pat on the back they deserve. But some people do approach life that way. They look at a crisis and they say it's just part of life, find the solution, and continue on. And as you see in our final chapters, they pondered, thought of, brainstormed, and generating solutions is paramount, necessary in being effective, especially in workplace communication. For college students, you find you have anxiety, there's some acts of violence, binge drinking. Not you guys, of course not. I'm certain not. Natural disasters. We had the pandemic, maybe automobile accidents, social media influences, neurodivergent. There's some, and this is more of the current medical crises. We and other people who are my age or close to my age, we really didn't have a lot of the neurodivergent that we're seeing and witnessing now, the ADHD, autism, neurological development, nervous system, and spinal injuries. But right now, these are the kinds of things that you all students are dealing with, even some of your professors are. And guess what? In dealing with that, these things is going to impact your communication in workplace, in home life, at your college, in the courses. Things we need to think about, variables that impact communication. Lack of sleep, this is huge. More than 1/3 of U.S. adults average less than 7 hours of sleep per night. More than half of those say stress and anxiety were main reasons for their poor sleep. Sunday, guess what, is the worst night of sleep? Even so much to say, individuals who go to work on Monday, that's the worst day that they want to awaken because they have to go to work because they don't like their job. Moreover, in the medical field, many heart attacks across this great nation occur on Monday because they're dreading going to work. Anxiety, anger, mental illness, anxious distress, narrowness of spirit. You become short with people. How many of you have done that this week? You've communicated in a way that was not kind, wasn't acceptable. You didn't do your perception check. You weren't empathetic with whom you were communicating. Well, sometimes that's a challenge to do. Maybe it's your medication, or could be lack of sleep. Maybe perhaps you are hormonally challenged. A lot of reasons, people, and this is why oftentimes people who work in how do we become better communicators, people who work in the field of communication as well as counseling, we are employed because people want to know, how can I be a better communicator? How can I get along with people? Well, we have to know and understand these different issues, concepts, dynamics that occur so we can be more effective communicators. There are signs and symbols that we need to be aware of. The work quality is going to be impacted. You'll miss classes. If even, and I've seen this, work submission, dark, somber, hopelessness in some of the themes. Some people's home, if you look at how it's decorated, even some color of cars that they choose. Some people feel so hopeless that it's impacting every aspect of their life. Then, of course, subsequently impacting, influencing how they communicate. Classroom disruptions, workplace disruptions. They used to call it a rage, workplace violence. When they'd go in and they with postal, you've heard of it maybe perhaps, that people become distraught. And not only they can't keep it in, they don't know how to communicate with others so that they're not disruptive. You may notice a change of appearance, dress, smell, look, rapidity in speech. Their paralanguage is changed. Lack of emotion, signs of injury, verbal abuse. Some people who, and they say misery loves company, but if you find an individual's badgering others in the workplace or in the classroom, guess what? They're probably going through something themselves. Be aware of that. Do you pull back? Do you question them? Do you open up yourself to have further communication with them? Well, you got to work with them. Maybe you do. Maybe you don't. Maybe you ask them to go to lunch. But since you've got to be around each other, maybe you do ponder the point and try to find out what's going on or how you can help. Now, and these were things that, again, a crisis in communication. How do we deal with these crises so we can, one, be a better communicator in workplace, in home life, and then two, just self-reflection on ourselves. As I was going through these slides, people, did you have a moment and think, well, there are some things that I could work on? Maybe you did. And maybe you said, no, this is all for others. No, some of these things may have pertained to you, but it's definitely worth time of reflection because no one's perfect. We all, and I know some of you are nursing, in agriculture, in maybe technology, you want to go into marketing, many fields of study, even teaching. But the point is, we want to be aware of things that not only others are doing, but what are we doing to contribute to being an effective communicator, whether it be in small group communication or in the workplace. Now I'm going to go on and I want to talk about leadership, people. What are we trying to accomplish? Leadership. No, and this is a quote from Andrew Carnegie. He's a Scottish American philanthropist and industrialist in the steel industry much long ago, but nonetheless, he's got buildings named after him across this great nation. And I quote, "No man will make a great leader who wants to do it all himself or get all the credit for doing it." And you may work with people who want all the credit. You may work with individuals, and they talked about different roles that you have, group member roles, who are positive. They may give you the right joke. Just ease up the tension in the place, that tension releaser, or maybe a harmonizer, or a social emotional leader. Or it might be that one that has the negative roles. They're self-centered, stage hog, look at me, look at me, look at me. Or is it someone who's an aggressor, who's putting others down, a self-confessor, using group meetings as a therapy session, getting off task? But there are multiple different kinds of group members, roles that are played within communication. Which one are you? Are you the one who stays on task, mature enough to hopefully solve problems? You're skilled at what you do. Are you an expediter? You keep the group, again, achieving the goals, similar to a task leader. Are you one who has the information provider, specialized knowledge? You want to initiate discussion. You want folks to be aware of the pertinent data, qualitative and quantitative, that will help us achieve the objective. Are you an information seeker? You want to clarify things, a critical thinker, a gatekeeper, one who manages the flow of information. We need all these people to balance the information. Are you a recorder? And sometimes a recorder, the one who is taking notes, and that person is very important, but sometimes they do not get the credit they deserve. In meetings, oftentimes they will switch off roles and allow someone else to be the recorder, so you can have an understanding of how valuable a recorder is in group meetings. We have, and I started down low. Let me go back up. Yeah, I started at the last one. Giggle. Last slide. Nonetheless, mutuality is an entry-level dialogue. And this is from a quote from Stephen Covey, as an American educator. He says, leadership is a choice, not a position. Some people would argue that individuals are born leaders. Others will say, no way, I learned to be a leader. Some people would cite that you have the traits of a leader. You're just born with it. They say, no, you can watch someone and acquire the leadership skills. You can want to be like that one. They're designated leaders, right? Officially recognized. Either they're born into nobility, they've got the title because of the structure and the status, the legitimate power that comes from family, or they're elected into it. These people wield the power they know they have. Hopefully that designated leader is empathetic. Or there's an emergent leader. They can gain status over time through the engagement, the knowledge, the expertise that they have, and get tasks accomplished. That emergent leader. Maybe perhaps that is you. Different kinds of leaders. Are you born into it, or can you acquire it over time? Self-centered leaders, and I quote, this is by John C. Maxwell, author on books on leaderships all across this great nation. He says that, quote, self-centered leaders manipulate when they move people from personal benefits. Mature leaders motivate by moving people for mutual benefit, end quote. Interesting. Remember, we had the social exchange theory. Look at the cost and reward of relationships. What am I getting out of it, some people say. And that can be very self-centered and selfish, certainly. And some people would warrant, no, sometimes I need to get what I need to get out of it, and then I'm able to help others. Is it reciprocal? Is it a give and take? Mutuality sees the other person's point of view. This action replaces silence and violence. Mutual purpose. Others perceive that you're working towards a common outcome in the conversation, whereby you convey that you care about their goals, interests, and values. And you say, well, how do I get you to feel and understand my emotion? Think about it. What kind of leader do you work under now? Your manager, or what kind of leader are you? Or even a parent? What kind of parents did you have? Did they allow you, and we talked about that in the home, did they allow you to express your perspective? What about your roommates? Do they want to make sure you're working toward the common goal of keeping the room clean, your dorm room, whatever the case may be? It's these simple things that are actually colossal when you're talking about human communication and mindful of what it takes to be an effective leader and also a group member. Because sometimes you can have so many leaders and so many chiefs, not enough Indians. All this comes into play when we're speaking about leadership. Skills to utilize when improving dialogue. You need to apologize. Is your apology sincere? Do you express sorrow and remorse? Sometimes people apologize, but they know you don't mean it. Raise your hand. You've done it before. Someone's done it to you. Certainly you have. Think in your heart. Ponder a moment. 2, is there contrast? Don't disrespect, but do clarify the purpose. And then 3, do you create a mutual purpose, concern, care, hope for success? Again, mutuality. And as you're thinking about that, utilizing your skills to improve education, the text, when talking about leaders, cited different kinds of leaders. Autocratic leader sets the policies, makes decisions. They have the power to change the agenda. Democratic leaders, they facilitate group discussion. They like input from members before making decisions. Laissez-faire leader, hands-off approach, prefer to allow the group members, of course, to make the decisions. Sometimes that can be beneficial, but it also could take a lot of time. You've got to keep people on task when you got laissez-faire, when you're generating the brainstorming. I mean, you could be there for 3 to 5 hours in a meeting. And so that impacts your bottom line. You're not maximizing performance if the meeting drones on for too long. So then you may have to use some of your other skills, your autocratic. Still, you can be laissez-faire, but maybe you sprinkle a little bit of autocratic leadership in that. Leadership. What kind of leader are you? What kind of roles are being played within leadership? Interesting to note when we're talking about leadership, and there goes the final, again, and I started with that, but it's the final quote. Who is a great leader? As you sit there, we ponder the point. I don't want to belabor. As you can think in history, who is a great leader? Why were they a great leader? A memorable, notable leader. What were some of the traits they had? Would you qualify them as more democratic, more laissez-faire, autocratic? When you know and understand these dynamics, understand these concepts, it will help you approach people, respond to them accordingly, and maybe we won't have so many groups dissolving or having individual leaving groups, exiting the group, because they understand what it takes to be a good leader as well as a solid group member. Lastly, I want to just speak on media and technology. This chapter, it was kind of antiquated. The text is somewhat antiquated, but be just aware that in media, we're losing that face-to-face. I mean, we're online here. I don't even see you all, except for when you present speeches. But I believe that, and it can be valuable, we can talk about the benefits of it. We need to understand, how do we utilize the face-to-face and then also the remote communication. Even when you're texting, and I've mentioned this before, you may text a communique and then someone will respond and say, why'd you say that? Because your tone came across how you didn't want it. Intended and actual communication, message responses, we need to be aware of that. And although many people in developing countries still do not have access to electricity and water, guess what they might have? A cell phone, a cellular device. That is wild. They may not have water, but they have a cell phone, meaning clean water. Isn't that just so amazing? It speaks to the value of our mobile devices. And some would say, well, that makes us so interdependent. We're all connected. But actually, this particular generation is noted as one of the loneliest generation in history. So connected, but so disconnected. Thus losing those social skills and those communication skills. How has the social media changed you? You can ask yourself that question. How has social media changed you? Your self-perception. I know a couple of my students did speeches on the persuading us that social media is bad. It's not favorable. It's having a negative impact on people. And then the cyber slacking, how we have so many people on cell phones at the job. If you go into retail, sometimes you'll ask the personnel a question and they're on their cell phone. You're like, excuse me, I have a question. Look up, people. Let's get focused. Let's communicate with one another. Before we leave out, I have a quote I just read this week, Forbes magazine, 2025. Soft skills like communication and ethical judgment are becoming crucial as AI handles routine tasks. Artificial intelligence, people, no matter how pervasive it is and will continue to be, it is soulless. Humans have a soul. We can calculate and understand emotions. Yeah, there are benefits in artificial intelligence as we talk about new media technologies. But leaders, communicators, cultivate communication. We can have and we can understand my morality. AI is saturating the workplace, but humans, our mind, our brain, developed the computers, people. Never forget that. Our brain is an extraordinary computer, as they wanted to call it, but we have a soul. Be mindful of that as you go on to be communicators within any industry that you've chosen, even in your home, the value of human communication, and be aware of the many variables And I don't want to rehash them all the chapters we've gone over throughout this term. But be aware that human communication is altruistic, it's empathetic. Human communication seeks to understand, is aware of creating meaning, and it takes time. Have patience in your human communication. I hope, and I'm certain as you look back over the weeks, watch the videos, the assignments that you've had, I hope they have made an impact in your life. And remember, we don't live on an island. We're all in this together. Thank you so much, and I wish you all the best in your coming life and whichever you choose to do. And lastly, don't forget, the final is next week. You'll do well. If you have any questions from now until then, feel free to email me. Have a good rest of your week. Dr. Williams signing out.